So I run. I'm a runner. That's something I call myself. I was pretty mediocre at most sports until I was about 12 when I tried track for the first time. And then I started racing the 1600 meter, the 2 mile, the 5K, and occasionally the 800 meters. So I'm a solid mid-distance runner. Even after I stopped running competitively, I kept running just for me, just for fun in college and beyond. And I think, like most runners, I have sort of a love-hate relationship with running. Mostly I love it. It's kind of like moving meditation for me. It really helps me clear my mind, and it gives me those endorphins that I need to feel calm and content even after I've stopped running. When you feel good on a run, you kind of feel like you can do anything, and it's a really good feeling. But when you don't feel good on a run, it can really suck. And that can be due to a huge range of things. Maybe you just haven't been fueling your body properly. Maybe you've got high lactic acid buildup in your muscles. Maybe you're dealing with an injury, and that's my least favorite. As someone who's been running competitively and not for the past decade, I've experienced a pretty wide range of injuries. Shin splints almost every season, strained hamstrings, NIT band, tendonitis, Achilles and arch issues. I currently have an overworked iliopsoas that I'm doing long-term physical therapy for. And most of these come down to running form. How your body is moving, the weight your center of mass and the rest of your weight is distributed, which muscle groups you're pulling and pushing with. And one of the biggest things that can affect your form, walking or running, is what's on your feet.
It's probably one of my favorite things to talk about. So I think our feet are just amazing. We have 26 bones, 33 joints. Each of those joints allow 6 degrees of freedom of motion. We have 100 ligaments. We have 20 muscles. Just in our arch, we have 4 layers of 10 muscles. So you can imagine that that's a pretty complex structure. And the reason that it's complex is so that it can move in many ways and function in many ways. So because of that complexity, it can at times in our gait cycle be a rigid lever for push off. And at other times it can be a mobile adapter to uneven terrain, and it helps to attenuate shock. Our foot, because of its structure, it just really can serve many functions. It's our base of support. It has spring-like characteristics. So it's really naturally adapted to walk and run without any help at all.
Every running season, my mom would take me to the running shoe store where one of their experts would put me in a pair of really flat shoes and make me run up and down the sidewalk and look at my stride. They were looking for things like pronation and supination, as well as where in your foot you strike the pavement, and then they would recommend shoes with the corresponding support that they said that you needed. And I would just do it because the coaches said to go there and they were the experts. I just bought what they told me to buy. They make supportive shoes because people's feet need support, right? Turns out, not the case.
So there are 2 things that I think modern footwear has done to interrupt and interfere with normal foot function. One of them is the cushion. So when you put a cushion in a shoe, you have a tendency to hit harder. The cushioning actually encourages a harder landing, and it encourages a landing on our heel. Because when you do that, you can stride out, and for a given cadence, you can go faster. So there's a benefit to it. The problem is you pay for it with an impact peak, and it's like a jolt that your body gets with every foot strike. And if you landed on your heels barefoot, that jolt would be even bigger, which is why when you run barefoot, you land on the ball of your foot. And just like any other part of our body, when you support a muscle, it gets weaker. It's nature, right? And when you increase the demand on the muscle, it gets stronger. This is very simple. This is not complicated. And so when you put chronic support under those 10 muscles and 4 layers in your arch, those muscles don't have to work as hard. And so it has a tendency to decondition the muscles as well. So it changes our mechanics in a very big way, and it deconditions the muscles in a very big way.
So running shoes started being marketed as a specialized, targeted footwear for this specific activity back in the mid-20th century, when regular people like you or I, not professional athlete type people, started getting into jogging as a hobby. It was something we did for fun. And shoe historians, which is a real job, and people who study the physiology of our feet are pretty sure that the reason the running shoes started to have this thicker cushion of support in the heel was because most people who were getting into jogging were used to wearing dress shoes. The industries that were looking to capitalize on this newfangled running hobby saw that people were complaining of Achilles and calf discomfort because their legs legs and feet weren't used to having the heel drop as far as it would in a flat running shoe. And so shoe companies made running shoes with a higher, cushy heel. And because that takes away all of that input from the ground that your foot would naturally get when barefoot or wearing a more minimalist shoe, that induces a lot more wobble in your foot and in your ankle, especially also because you're then not asking your foot to sort of hold itself up in the way that it's made to. So shoe companies had to introduce all kinds of other support structures within the shoe, like maybe some inner arch support, to combat the wobble that's introduced by that cushioned heel in the first place. One of my favorite quotes from an expert on this particular topic is that,
So you're buying technology in shoes to correct for problems caused by the shoe itself.
Irene sort of covered this already, but your hands and your feet are some of the most osteopathically complex parts of your body. Your feet contain almost a quarter of all of the bones in your body, with a similarly high density of connective tissues like ligaments and tendons, and they're a very complicated machine designed to do a very complicated task, but to do it pretty well. So over the past couple of years, I've been putting more thought into what's on my feet when I'm running, and I've actually started to gravitate towards more minimalist shoes, actually both when I'm running and when I'm not. I really like a shoe with less support, initially because I was looking for something lighter. I really didn't like the way that the shoes with a lot of support felt really heavy on my feet. Kind of felt like I had bricks tied to my feet and made it harder to run the way that I wanted to. And while I was seeking a lighter shoe, that essentially meant a shoe with no added support. And as I've transitioned into that, my feet have felt fine. And in fact, I feel like my running form has gotten a lot better. After using running shoes with inner arch support my whole life, I actually think that the lighter shoe and the physical therapy that I've been doing and concentrating more on my form as I've studied to be a personal trainer, it's a confluence of a lot of things. It feels easier to implement healthier running form in a minimalist shoe than it did in a high support shoe. I feel like running in a more minimalist shoe actually makes me activate my ankles and all of the muscles in my shin and calf area in a really different way. I can feel my toes engaged more, and I definitely feel that my arch has gotten stronger. I've actually been using these shoes from, as you can see, a major corporate brand that are marketed as training shoes for the gym, like for weightlifting or cross training, but for me, they've been really perfect for running. I think those are just the basic Nike Free, and I actually wore them during a Ragnar race that I did a couple months ago. It was a 24-hour relay, and over the course of 24 hours, you non-consecutively run the equivalent. I think I did like the equivalent of about a half marathon, and I wore those shoes the whole time on the road. It was a road race, and I felt better in my legs and in my feet than I did after running a real half marathon in my supportive shoe. Now, if you are thinking about moving towards a more minimalist shoe for walking or for running, there are some considerations. Most people, so if you're talking about the middle of the bell curve, the average, most people will be totally fine in a minimalist shoe. There are some people who may have structural malfunctions or some kind of disability or a chronic illness or a chronic injury that may require something different.
In the normal orthopedic musculoskeletal injuries, we don't need all of that. That is really my strong belief. Now, if somebody has diabetes and they don't have a normal sensory system, then they need to have some adaptations. If you have really badly deformed feet because of some rheumatoid arthritis, then you might need custom shoes that are molded to your feet. I think there's always those kind of exceptions, but those aren't the people we're talking about. I mean, I think that the large majority of people who have musculoskeletal injuries really don't need the orthotics that they're in and the supportive shoes that they're in.
So if you have any kind of concerns like that, definitely talk to your doctor about it, especially your podiatrist if you have one. And for everyone, you have to make sure you transition slowly.
Say we take a 30-minute time period and you have them walk briskly for 30 minutes. And once they can do that, then you break that up into 3 10-minute intervals and you walk 9, run 1, walk 9, run 1, walk 9, run 1. And then you slowly replace, you walk 8 and run 2, 8, 2, take a day off, see how you respond. If you do okay, then move on. Once you're up to 30 minutes straight of running, then you can start to increase the time continuously, slowly, and increase the speed slowly. And I always tell people it's really no different than any other physical activity that you're going to do. You would not go to the gym and lift, 500 pounds, 200 pounds, whatever, without building up to that slowly, or you're going to get injured.
Something that really got me thinking more about this more recently and kind of inspired me to make this video was a video that I came across called Shoespiracy, which is a hilarious and awesome name for a documentary. And it goes into a little bit more of the science, talks to a couple more experts, including Irene, actually. It goes into the history of it a little bit more, and so if you want more information on this, I highly recommend that video. I'll leave it down in the description. After doing a little more digging, I did find that it was made in partnership with a shoe company called Vivo Barefoot, and they are a shoe company that makes more minimalist running shoes. Basically, they just provide sort of this protective surface between you and the ground with no extra cush that's going to mess up your form or your physiology while you're running. But I'm always a little wary of informational documentaries made in conjunction with a brand, because obviously that brand has a vested interest in the information in the documentary, convincing you to buy their product. So it's always good to come at these things with a more skeptical lens, I think. But in this case, all of the research that I've done, which I will also link down in the description, has really convinced me that I think this topic is legit. Yes, Vivo Barefoot probably has a vested interest in you watching this documentary and then wanting to buy a more minimalist shoe, but that doesn't mean in this case I think that the information is incorrect or is biased in any really big distorting way. This video is not sponsored by Vivo Barefoot, but they are gonna send me a free pair of shoes, which is pretty exciting, and I'm really pumped to try those out. And if you want to see a video of me comparing my mainstream minimalist shoe to this shoe and seeing how it goes and how I do the transition, then please let me know. I'd be interested in making that video for you. Now, of course, there are some members of the medical and the biomechanics, physiology, science community that push back against this idea that minimalist footwear is best. But in those cases, I think it's really important to take into account where those people are coming from. In some cases, some of those scientists may have built their career on espousing a certain running shoe for the health and wellness of runners. So it's important to see where those people are coming from. Something else might be going on. And doctors, of course, may be reticent to recommend a product to their patient that may be misused and cause injury. Like with almost everything in health, fitness, exercise, diet, science, you want to take it slow, you want to introduce it in moderation, you want to give your body time to get used to it and not make any huge drastic changes that aren't going to be sustainable or that may induce injury because your body's not ready for a change that big yet. Some biomechanics experts say that the argument that your body is equipped with everything it needs to run healthfully and it doesn't need any extra support is actually irrelevant because your body will adapt to any extra cushion you give it. But some really interesting recent studies say that that's actually not the case. Runners who ran for 6 weeks in an extra cushy shoe, what we call a maximalist shoe, actually had the same foot strike and with the same force of impact after the 6 weeks orientation period to that shoe. So over 6 weeks, their body did not adjust and their feet were still hitting the ground with the same amount of force as they were at the beginning of that 6 weeks. Meaning your body probably doesn't get used to a cushy shoe, it just keeps hitting the ground harder than it should, causing extra force to be absorbed by your joints. I'm really excited to transition into an even more minimalist shoe. I'm really excited to see how it feels, how it affects my form, how I deal with it with that injury that I'm dealing with. I'd love to hear from you guys about your experience with running and the journey that you've been on with footwear, which sounds silly, but I think is really cool. Let me know what you think in the comments down below or over on social. And if you're thinking about getting rid of your old running shoes because you want to try something new, please consider recycling or donating them. I'll leave some links in the description box down below. We don't want any of those old running shoes going just sitting in a landfill because you're gonna go get new ones, so check that out if you're interested. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe to this channel if you want to see more videos like this, or if you're interested in seeing those videos that I mentioned earlier in this video. I hope you guys are having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.